So, The Taming of the Shrew by William Shakespeare was written in the 16th century, and it is an infamous comedy. It can be summed up in just one sentence as a play about a woman who is forced to submit to the rule of a tyrant, a rude woman who is forced to behave. It can be seen from either perspective. However, this isn't exactly the essence of the play. I believe that Shakespeare is dealing with the themes of equality in marriage, and this can be seen through Petruchio and Kate's relationship, where they have some sort of equality in context of the time period that it was written, and it is contrasted against the conventions of marriage that Shakespeare saw as outdated to his time, such as the relationship between Bianca and Lucentia. Other themes such as marriage and money, hunting and deception, to name a few, are also discussed in the play. So this particular extract is taken from Act 3, Scene 2, which is coming after Kate and Petruchio's marriage. They've just gotten married, and Kate has had a rather terrible day. Petruchio has completely humiliated her. He's shown up to her wedding in a ridiculous outfit. He showed up late, and then he completely has ridiculed her and humiliated her in front of everybody she's ever known, and now he's taken her away to his home. And so what he's doing is, throughout the play so far, and in this extract as well, is he shows off his power, and he refuses to conform as a groom. And he shows Kate that she is being a bad bride, and he does so by, rather than simply through brute force and being angry at her, he tries to outdo her and be even more crazy and ridiculous and annoying than she even can be as a shrew. So he's almost being a shrew himself. However, because he's a man, it's more acceptable when he does it. He's just kind of ridiculous. It's kind of funny. And so that's what is happening in this scene. The scene starts off with Petruchio speaking. This is indicative of something that happens throughout this play. Petruchio talks a lot. Petruchio has very interesting verbal dexterity. He has a lot of words. He has twice as many lines as anybody else in the play. And he's able to speak in prose. He's able to speak in poetry. He's able to match whomever it is that he's speaking to. And this is how Shakespeare shows Petruchio's power. He is an alpha male. He is the ideal Shakespearean man. And to show this, Shakespeare allows him to take the role of the perfect Shakespearean man and to just speak really, really with a lot of dexterity and with a lot of interest, which allows him to be in power, and it's how he's managed to be in power and be that alpha male character. So it begins with him discussing his business, the use of the word business, life treating business, as associating, again, the theme of marriage and money, and how marriage is kind of like a business transaction. It's not really about love, which is one of the themes in the play. Then he says, "You would entreat me, rather go than stay." The word entreat is repeated several times in this extract. Petruchio first says, "You would entreat me," and then Tranio says, "Let us entreat you to stay till after dinner." Petruchio says, "It may not be." Gremio says, "Let me entreat you." Petruchio says, "It cannot be." He's building suspense. He is repeatedly denying, and there's more intensity now with what he's saying. Then Katharina says, "Let me entreat you." It's a shrewish statement because she should not be saying something like that. She shouldn't be demanding anything from her husband. However, it is somewhat reasonable now because she's married to him. Petruchio replies, "I am content." He's pushing her. He's playing with her. Because what does that mean? So then Katharina has to say, "Are you content to stay?" The fact that she questions this is already putting her in a position of submission. She cannot simply flat out deny everything that Petruchio says and act as a complete shrew. She's forced to care about what he says. She's forced to ask him, "What do you mean by this? What is happening?" It is putting her in a position where she must become submissive and she must become more of a doting wife than a shrew. So Petruchio continues to be annoying, says, "I am content, you shall entreat me stay," but yet not stay. It's caesura, and then entreat me how you can't stay. The tone is switching. He's used to people doing as he tells them to, and so he insists that. Now Katharina says, if you love me, stay. Love is not a commonly used word and implies commitment. This is a challenge, and Petruchio takes the challenge by ignoring her. And he says, Grumio, my horse. Mentioning a horse is alluding to animal imagery, which is alluding to the idea that Kate should be like the horse, submissive and listening to what Petruchio has to say. So then Katharina goes off on a full Shrew speech. She says, nay then, do what thou canst. I will not go today. Her word choice here is like the words that Petruchio uses. However, when he says these things, it is considered strong and powerful. From her, it's like whining. So she still hasn't learned her lesson. And so she says, for me, I'll not be gone till I please myself. That word, please, till I please myself, is repeated. Her lesson is still unlearned. She hasn't gotten the idea yet. She uses strong words, jolly, surly groom. So then Petruchio says, content thee, prithee not be angry. So he says it sweetly. It's almost as though he doesn't really hate her. He just really wants her to understand that lesson. So she says, I will be angry. She continues, she keeps going. She doesn't get it. She's still being a complete shrew. So then Grumio says, I, Mary, sir, now it begins to work. They're laughing at her rather than actually listening to what it is that she has to say, which it always has been. Then Katharina says, another statement, I say, woman may be a fool if she had not spirit to resist. She's continuing to resist. It's a battle for control between Petruchio and Katharina. However, Petruchio does have the last several lines. He mocks her. He says, I shall go forward at thy command, obey the bride. And he's showing that he can be just as crazy and ridiculous as her. He can shout longer and louder than her. However, he doesn't humiliate her. He then makes a parody of the 10 Commandments, saying she is my goods, my chattel, she is my house. This idea of you're not allowed to covet your neighbor's stuff. However, by stating this and making this allusion, Petruchio is suggesting that Kate is a covetable item. He is considering her an item. However, she's not a completely useless, terrible member of society and a total shrew to her in his eyes. She's something that is wanted, which is something Kate is not used to being treated. So, he's also saying this publicly to the Paduans around and trying to show that he wants them to back off, and he wants them to let him figure out and let him deal with Kate the way he wants to, because he's intrigued by Kate and he doesn't want her to completely lose everything. He just wants her to be in a way where she can be reasonable in society. So it is two feisty personalities who are meeting, and they kind of complete each other. They are the yin to one another's yang. And he just wants her to be something that can fit in society, and Kate has to learn that. So it's just an alternate perspective on marriage, and marriage based in equality rather than the woman being submissive to the man.